All right, welcome back to another episode of Cameo Podcast, the CIVIC election edition. We're back at Redbeard. I am actually sitting across from Sadie Hunter, and when we met a couple weeks back for something else, she was standing because she just underwent surgery, so she was just sharing that she's starting to not have to use her cane as much, which is exciting.
Yeah, it's progress every day, baby steps. As long as I keep up on my physio, it's should be able to walk back to normal in no time. It's been about almost 4 months of recovery, so I'm on the tail end of that. So
awesome.
Yeah.
And in terms of baby steps, you also went after the by-election last year.
Yeah.
To kind of set yourself up for this year. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of reasons why it made sense at the time. First time in foray into politics, you don't know what to expect. So it's a bit of testing the waters to see what the experience is all about and really diving in head first. And, if I also name recognition is part of it. So getting out there and getting that name recognition built up, because I have lived here for 17 years, but I'm going by my married name now. My maiden name was Sadie Cox, and I think people might recognize me by that last name versus my married name. So there's a little bit of that to it as well.
Yeah, and actually, just for the sake of transparency, we did, like I said earlier, we did have a personal relationship before this. Not that it really makes any difference. So we're just having a conversation. I'm friends with your brother, and your role. Your foray into politics was that by-election, but you're pretty familiar with kind of working for a larger organization because you work for TRU.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, and what do you do there, out of curiosity again?
I'm the Director of Development for Science and Nursing, so that means I fundraise for programs, student awards, capital projects. So the new nursing building is in my portfolio, as well as the software engineering and the other 2 engineering degrees that we're still going for. So that was really what led to me having some connections in the tech industry, was a lot of the background work that went into promoting those degrees in Kamloops, because really at the end of the day, our programs are great, but when our students graduate, they need to have jobs. And totally. A lot of that was talking to the industry to find out what their needs were in looking at how we were going to go forward with the actual degree program, because we want it to be successful and we want the students to be successful.
Yeah, and you certainly have made yourself a presence within the tech industry prior to even really running for anything at all, because I moonlight in that industry as well, I guess is the best way to say. A lot of people that I've been chatting with very much do say, the tech industry, tech jobs, that's the industry we want to develop and support. But how do you develop and support tech jobs when we've seen a lot of people leave this town not finding the jobs that they were looking for?
Yeah, that's it's not necessarily a straightforward question or answer to that question. I've had a lot of conversations over the last 3+ years about that, and it comes down to having the space, but also the attraction of the businesses to Kamloops. So then when you start looking at business attraction, you need to look at tax rates, space for them to establish, the employees that they're going to bring with them, what's the quality of life that they're going to have, what amenities are here for them, what's going to sustain them, how competitive can we be in terms of wages. A lot of people, I think, move to Kamloops from the Lower Mainland because of lifestyle. They don't have an hour commute each way to work. The recreation is literally right outside their door, but they're often trading that for a difference in wage, because we can't be competitive with a lot of the companies in Vancouver that way. So those are some of the pieces. So it's not just the businesses, it's also attracting the talent, because we are graduating students in computer science and software engineering, but I think where a bit of the challenge lies is in having some experienced talent who can mentor those students when they graduate and have that capacity in our existing businesses here. So it's about attracting those skilled individuals to the city, to the companies that are already here, in order to support those companies and maintain their success, and then just keep building.
Yeah, and did you go to Tech Fest?
Yes, I did.
What sort of companies did you come across that you were kind of excited that you didn't know existed here in town?
Oh, shoot. I can't remember the name of the one company, but they were basically digitizing operations for sawmill industries.
Oh, really?
I'm not sure if you know.
I've never heard of them.
The one gentleman I talked to, I'm awful with names.
Just trying to explain what they're doing.
So he actually is a faculty member also at the university. So what they've done is created an interface where they can control the different sizing of the logs, the production. So they work with sawmills. I'm not sure if they're active in the plywood industry or not, but what it showed me was that there is a huge need and that's what I'm looking for here, potential for tech to be paired with our resource industry base that we have, like our base that forms the roots of this city.
Mm-hmm.
It shows me that there's complementary.
Well, there's the knowledge in this city.
Yeah.
To apply to resource. You could look at Jathan's Lightship.
Yeah.
Right? So for people who don't know, Lightship is a command center to essentially control all operations of the oil and gas industry to ensure safety of the workers. That's the best way I can describe it. You might know a bit more than
safety, and I think looking at ways to increase efficiency and maintenance, and reduce costs, and just overall increasing the effectiveness of the workplace. Where there is safety, maintenance, cost reduction, and any of those aspects. And what that showed me when I saw that new interface was that there is potential, and I really feel like that's our niche in Kamloops, is bringing together the traditional resource industry base with technology, mm-hmm. and looking at ways that we can really leverage and help those existing industries move forward and propel themselves ahead of their competition.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer, actually. Like now that you say that and I'm putting it together, it's like, okay, that's what Lightship is. Now you have the sawmill, right? What other industry that's resource-based can we potentially help, right?
Well, mining.
Mining, exactly.
We have the Domtar here as well, and I know that there have been some projects even that were multi-partner projects that were funded through research funding through the university. So, having the university here is another bonus in a way, right? Because you tie together industry, smaller startup companies, and then the research capacity at TRU, and you're looking at a whole nother realm of possibility. Absolutely.
Yeah, the TRU is an underutilized resource in this town. Mm-hmm. The amount of people I've said, why don't you go find a university prof to pitch, maybe a joint project, and you throw some money at a winner of whoever you decide, right? I did a few of those, and Tourism Kamloops never gave me credit for when they took some ideas. And I'm still a little bit, yeah, whatever. But we could also get aero transportation and streamline industries, right?
Absolutely.
Kamloops is a distribution hub. You got what's the big distribution center that we all know out in Dallas?
Oh, NRI.
NRI, yeah. Right? Another technology-based company, right? Because they're doing all the distribution for. I know all the skate companies are out of there, and the running companies and whatever be. So a lot of potential for this city.
Well, and we're a transportation hub as well. So looking at how we can facilitate safer transportation routes is another, I think, aspect that hasn't been looked at, but that has potential for both research projects and funding, but also potential for a niche for businesses to focus on, yeah. Right? So as we have the rail, we have a major highway hub through here. So I'm sure there's lots of other things that we could look at and that we could leverage to build on.
Totally. Now, out of curiosity, so I came from Ontario, and I was forced to get a BC driver's license after 6 months or whatever it be, right? Mm-hmm. So I was still in school at TRU. So TRU students can vote as well. Is that true?
As long as they've lived in BC for 6 months.
Got it.
Yeah. So, but if they're international students, unfortunately, they can't, even if they've been here for a couple of years, because they have to be have permanent resident status.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So, have you seen a lot of uptake? Like, there's always the, you go back to the stereotype of the politically active student, right?
Yeah.
Is that really coming to play in the civic election? Is there big civic election uptake in our university students?
I haven't seen much of anything on campus. I'm really glad to see actually that the KTW forum that was just announced and organized is actually going to be on campus, and I think that was just a kind of a fluke in a way, because it just depended on where they had available space to host it. But I think it worked out really well, because it will be really accessible to students, because it's going to be on campus in the Grand Hall at 6 o'clock at night. So I don't think it's too far out of the way for a lot of students, because sometimes at TruSU last year, they often host a forum for civic candidates, but this year they're not. So this way it actually kind of worked out really well. And I would have to give TruSU credit for having really good videos. They ask really good questions, they interview all of the candidates, and they post those up for students to have access to, and I think they do a really good job with that.
Yes, yeah. And they don't really edit. The only thing editing they do is cutting the actual questions out, as I understand as well, right? So
yeah, so the questions appear as text on the screen, so they just kind of cut out,
make it quicker
when they're
for people.
talking in between, right?
Yeah, and
yeah.
Now, sorry if I'm keeping on this tech/TRU train, right? Feel free to lead me down a different, if there's something you want to chat about. But as someone who's part of TRU, have you come across the memes of TRU Facebook, not Instagram page? Has that been a point of contention?
No, I have to admit I'm not even aware of it.
Okay.
Now I'm going to have to go look for it.
Yeah, check it out. It's interesting because you can see I'm going to call it the old school flavor of Kamloops coming out in memes, right? Okay. Not to put a political bias on it, because I don't know the person, obviously, but right-wing leaning, and I'm assuming they're in the trades, right? And they kind of have their biases come out pretty heavy in these things, right? So it's kind of interesting that there's a civic election. There's this guy that you can kind of see their political beliefs coming out through memes. I want to know if they're going to come out and vote, right? So
you should ask them.
I guess I should ask them and go, hey, go show up at the All Candidates Forum, right? Because if you're going to poke fun at, the establishment, you better be willing to do something about it, right? Yeah,
I would encourage you to ask that person. Like I said, I wasn't even aware.
Okay, no worries.
I'm pretty active on social media during campaign, but I have to admit that I'm not as active, day to day. I try to be on top of it, but my preference is, and maybe that's old school in me a little bit, but preference is always face-to-face conversations, and
absolutely,
I find it hard to keep up with everything that's going on sometimes on social media.
Yeah, and that's totally fair, right? You're in campaign season, you have to, keep the bills paid and, meet with your potential voters and whatever be, right? So I am honored that you met with just some kid with a couple mics.
No, this is great. Like I said, I prefer conversations, so if I can somehow, transport a conversation online, that's, I appreciate you providing this opportunity to do that.
What sort of conversations are you having with people? Is there like a reoccurring theme that keeps on popping up?
The first question I get asked is how old I am, because
why does that matter?
Well, I don't think it does, but it's just one of the first common questions that I get asked, and I'm not sure. I think maybe I look younger, but for the record, I'm 39. And I
didn't put you at that.
I do have a 21-year-old son, and it's just, I don't know, I think it helps people with context. They ask because it's context for maybe life experience, where you are in your life, in your career. It provides a little bit of information about you when you don't know somebody. So that's just like one of the more personal questions that I get asked. But aside from that, it's been about, affordable housing has been one, economic development, but by and large, if I had to pick an overarching theme, I would say it's vision, right? What's a vision for Kamloops? And that's, when I talk about my platform, the overarching thing that I've been highlighting is identity, because I think we're at this kind of in-between teenager phase where we're trying to really come out of our shell and really define who we are and where we want to go and what we're going to look like as a community, like 20 years down the road, like you look over the horizon and what is Kamloops going to look like 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that we have that definition. We're going, like we were talking about being a resource-based economy, a resource town. We still are a resource town, and I think we should embrace that, and we always will be resource-based to some extent. But what else can we add to that? What else is going to define us? We've done a great job defining ourselves as a tournament capital of Canada, but to me, that's one part of who we are as Kamloops. That's not all of Kamloops. So I think I believe what's really important now is to take the steps to find that vision and use that vision to guide us in terms of what businesses we try to attract here, the way we shape our communities, whether that be through the following the OCP planning or something else. But we need to look at who we are.
Mm-hmm.
We spend a lot of time in Kelowna's shadow. I like to say we're kind of like Kelowna's shy cousin. We're not quite coming out of our shell yet, and I think we've got a lot to be proud for in Kamloops, and we should be proud, and we should be promoting ourselves as a really great place to live. And that in itself, just embracing that and being proud is a big step, I think, towards defining and embracing what our future might look like.
Yeah, and I think, though, a little bit of that doesn't just come to the city and Tourism Kamloops and Venture Kamloops, right? Like, as residents, we have to be proud to wave that flag too, right?
Absolutely.
You don't need to go to Kelowna to have a good weekend or to go shopping or whatever be, right? Like, there is really great shops here. Just do you know they exist is kind of the question, or are you willing to pay a little bit more to support the local businesses? I like to promote the idea of being a tourist in your own community. Go out and explore a different neighborhood, even go to a different park, and just I think that helps build that understanding and that passion for your community, because then you see more of it, and the more you see of it, the more I believe anyways people will love it. I think Kamloopsians, if I can use that term, are proud of their community. I'm not saying they're not. I just think we can be louder about it and totally
invite our friends and family to come visit and just really promote what we have here.
Yeah, you can look at like how involved people are in these little Facebook groups all around town, right? Where they don't really stand to gain anything in these Facebook groups, but they're sharing factoids or things among themselves. And that's great. That's a sense of the community online. But what are they doing to really, outside of that, promote Kamloops online to their family and friends, or what are they doing, right? And, that's why I wanted to kind of create like an online digital performing arts center of sorts, right? Is how can we as a community really push that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't really know where I'm going with that, in all honesty.
So how can you push a performing arts center, or just more arts and culture in the city? Is that
more just like how do you help people raise a flag and wave it and collectively market Kamloops as like a place, kind of like what Mastermind's doing in a more grassroots way. Mm-hmm. But, let's caveat that. This is about you, not me. And that's the beauty of these conversations, right? There's no limit. Right, and I just keep talking until something comes to mind. Mm-hmm. But clearly, you're jumping around to all these different media sources, right? And they all have different questions, right? Some are being, the Sasquatch, what would you do? And some are a little bit more, in depth. Some are short, some are longer, whatever be. How are you trying to share your message to people these days, and where are people responding best for you?
Well, I'm just, again, sharing my message anywhere I can, whether that's in person or online. I think Arjun Singh posted even this weekend, like, as candidates, we have been sent now, since Sunday even, probably close to 65 questions through various media sources and community groups, which is great.
Yeah.
So I've been answering tons of questions that way, and then interacting online through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I find most of the interaction that I'm getting back is through Facebook, through my Facebook page, and I do have a website as well. I think Facebook is the medium that a lot of people are most comfortable with. So I encourage people to reach out to me in any one of those platforms, and I'll try and respond as soon as I can. It's not always easy, especially this time of year.
Yeah.
I don't always see the notifications. So if you do that and you don't hear back from me, I encourage you to email me directly at sadiehunterkamloops@gmail.com.
So they just rolled out the Let's Talk Kamloops platform recently, right? Because, I will throw myself as probably one of the troublemakers at times, talking to city councilors, maybe a immature fashion or a incorrect medium. If you get elected, how do you think you should be responding and chatting with, your constituents? Like, what is an acceptable way to allow you to do what you do, have a life, but also be accountable?
Well, I think it's the open communication and transparency is really important. It can be difficult, I think, and I can't speak from that experience because I haven't been quite in that position yet. I think the official channels are probably the most direct and easiest to, like the council email and the phone number are, I would think, the easiest. I do find even now just being tagged in something online, it's hard to find it. It's hard. You miss it sometimes. You don't always get the notifications, and then that can sometimes come across as you're not being responsive or you're not listening, but you don't always see it, especially if you're working full-time, which many of the other councillors are. So I would say to go through the official council channels to try and reach you, and I would try and be as responsive as possible.
How do you feel when someone does tag you in something that you're not directly part of the conversation?
Well, like I said, I don't always see it, but when I do, it kind of, sometimes, depending on what it is, sometimes you find yourself scrambling to try and find out what the context of the conversation is and where that individual is coming from, where it started, and you have to, kind of go back and try to read through all of the conversation, because sometimes you're not tagged until 30 comments down, and then it takes a bit of time to figure out where things are, and I don't know that that's the best way to get a good answer necessarily, or have a fulsome dialogue. I would much prefer somebody pick up the phone and ask me the question or something like that, so then we can have a meaningful discussion about it. I was tagged in something. I think someone expected me to run for city council or something, and I was having a bad time, and I just ended up recording something and releasing it, and just what the heck did you expect me to do? And I just went on a full-on rant or sort of thing, because I read Katie Newstater's refraction article, right? About that, right? And kind of respecting those boundaries. And I think it's something that people don't really get yet. And even people who are within the realm who probably should have seen that article haven't really respected those boundaries yet. And hopefully that changes with this Let's Talk thing. But at the same point, I saw someone online who tried to sign up, and it's no, your postal code doesn't exist, and they couldn't sign up. So that was funny. Oh, really?
Yeah, it was on Reddit, which is not used at all, but it is what it is. What do you do outside of fundraising for TRU, campaigning? Who is Sadie Hunter or previously Sadie Cox?
I have a lot of activities that I engage in when I can find the time. I'm one of the most consistent ones, especially right now, is being physically active and being healthy. So I'm at the TCC most mornings. Right now it's, for physio, but I just think that having a balance in life is, even to your previous point, is really important. So I try to be active either there. I used to teach fitness classes at the TCC and as a volunteer fitness instructor at the YMCA. And then I'm either there or I'm out and about in the community being active. I also freelance write in my spare time.
Did not know that.
Quote unquote spare time. Yeah, so I've done everything from technical reports to professional blogs to ghostwriting book chapters to proofreading.
Oh, cool.
Student papers, you name it, I've done it. And I've been doing that pretty much for 15 years, if not a little bit longer. It started off as a side gig to help pay bills, because as a single parent and a student, on a student loan, you don't get enough to live on. You have a maximum amount that student loan will give you for the year, and it always fell short by about $10,000. So I couldn't work anywhere being a single parent, so I couldn't have a part-time job that had regular hours. So that was my way of kind of bridging the gap along with student awards. So that's one of the reasons that I am a fundraiser at TRU, because without those awards and without those donors, I wouldn't be here. There was one year in particular where I almost left town because I couldn't continue anymore because I needed the funding. I was, out of money. So thankfully what happened was two things happened at once. I got into low-income housing through Interior Community Services. So that saved me because even though Kamloops at the time was one of the most affordable places to live, you're still, when you're living on, I think I was on maybe $1,000 a month, and your rent is $800, that doesn't leave very much.
No, not at all.
For anything. So getting into that housing was a game changer for me, and I also received an award that really made all of the difference for me. So
it's really come back around, right?
Absolutely.
So that's kind of your basis for your platform a little bit, because I imagine you're a supporter of affordable housing.
Absolutely, yeah, and across the spectrum too. I mean, not just for like people who are similar position to me, but people who are first-time homebuyers who are trying to get into the housing market, or retirees who might be on a pension, or people on disability. Like just housing for everyone, really. So what can we do to try and facilitate that, whatever that looks like? So I mean, one of my motivators and drivers for running for city council is I want to give back. Yeah. The city really helped me succeed. The people, it wasn't, when I moved here, I didn't know anyone. I'd never even stepped foot in Kamloops, and it was really intimidating. I actually, to be honest, everywhere I lived before, whether it was northern BC or in Squamish, was forested. When it wasn't snow up north, it was green. So when I came here, the landscape seemed barren, and it took me a while to really fall in love with the city. But what won me over was the people here, because they really took me in and became my family, and it's with their support that I was able to get to where I am now.
Awesome.
So that's why I'm at TRU raising funds for students, and that's why I want to give back to the city and help us grow. Yeah,
I would have had no idea that you kind of had those years of struggle, right? And I'm probably slightly in those years of struggle as I figure out and make ends meet. And I'm still in a better position than a lot of people, right? Now to go to the flip side, right? Like we obviously want to support housing and give people opportunities, right? But how do you balance that out with people who even this morning, someone was calling for Arjun Singh to ban any tax raises or whatever it be, right? Like,
right.
How do you find that balance of like giving people real opportunity, but also not, dissuading the people who currently, have a house but struggling to make the property tax, or don't want to subsidize someone else's lifestyle, if you know what I mean?
Well, there's always going to be a bit of a balancing act between all facets of our community. Where I'm coming from and what I'm really advocating is kind of taking a point in time. I don't think we can step forward effectively without having a good sense of where we're standing, where we're grounded, and that that applies to where we are for budgets, programs, services. So what I'm promoting is doing a core review and looking if there's any opportunity to revise or redirect some of the funding that's already in the budget. So maybe some of that can be redirected to support some of the programs and services that need more support. But it's kind of a two-step process, right? We need to know where we are before we can take a step forward. Mm-hmm. And we also need to have a vision before we can take a step forward. So I think right now we need to take a few months and really get a good handle on that, where we are fiscally and where we are as a community. And then, have some intention behind where we're going and what we're doing in our future direction.
Yeah, it seems to be a common theme with people who I've been speaking with, right? Who struggle to figure out if Kamloops has a vision, and I go, well, isn't that what the CAM plan's for?
No.
Right? So if we've already got a plan in place, right, to me that means money, time, resources spent developing. When you scrap that, aren't we just...
It's not scrapping it. So the CAM plan, it guides, I would say, capital and structural that kind of development. Whereas what I'm talking about is more of its identity, it's vision for the community. So I'm not suggesting that we put a bunch of funds into another report or what's the word I'm looking for?
The bureaucracy of democracy?
Well, just doing a review.
Yeah.
So the core review of municipal services and that budget, that's one thing. But to form our vision, I don't know that we need to I'm not suggesting we hire a consultant or anything like that. It's just going out into the community and talking to people and asking them what their vision is. What kind of city do they want to live in? What is their vision for Kamloops?
How do you pick the people to talk to, right? Because if you pick the older generation, right, they're going to have a wildly different vision than the younger generation. Right. And as someone who is 26, right, I believe my vision for Kamloops supersedes anyone who's who's retired, because I'm sorry, your guys' time is kind of coming to an end, not to be morbid, but...
Well, I believe there's value in talking to all segments of the population. You can't just focus on one, because that's being exclusionary, right? If we're building community, we have to include all the demographics in the community to get a good sense, and then go from there. So, just capturing that vision and that sense of identity will fuel a purpose behind and intentionality behind where we need to go.
And flipping back to your tech roots and hanging out with the Innovation Center, you must have come across the Lean Startup at least umpteen dozen times by Eric Rees. Is there any way for kind of startup principles to be used in municipal civic election where, fail hard, fail fast, fail quick, and redo? Or do we have to go through these slow processes that are bureaucratic to see, can we start trying to apply these really hard, really fast principles? Is that even...
I think there's definitely room to be less risk averse and be a little bit more open to trying new things without going through a whole lot of process up front. The pilot project on 4th is an example.
Totally.
Just go and do it and see what happens. You don't have to have everything lined up. If it's a low risk opportunity or low risk exploration of something that could be a possibility that will move us forward, then I don't see why we wouldn't do it. I think there needs to be a balance. Obviously, we're not going to go, bolting out the gates and just fail hard at everything, because there has to, it doesn't make sense in all circumstances. There is definitely room to do more of that, though. I know a lot of communities have been moving towards that. Victoria has done a few things in the last couple of years under Mayor Helps, and to just get out there and just try new things. And the other thing that the City of Victoria has done, and I think it's particularly led by the mayor, is having a community open house, a coffee or like a round table, so to speak, just open office hours for anyone in the community to drop by. I believe it's every 2 weeks. It might be once a month, where the mayor's office, like the civic office, is open to anyone to come in and have a chat about what's going on and engage with the city. And I think some really good ideas and initiatives have come out of that. And there's no reason why we couldn't do something like that here.
Totally.
You know, like not just engage when there's an issue or during campaign time, but just on an ongoing, regular basis. So, city council meetings are a bit tough, right, to bring that kind of conversation forward. But having something a little bit more casual and less formal, it's more of a drop-in, I think it would be a perfect way to incorporate those views.
Yeah, as a younger person, right, like going to like I saw you at the Mayor's Gala of the Arts or whatever it be, right? Seeing those formalities of like calling people honorable and all that stuff, I don't get that. Because to me, they're just a regular person who just has a job title. And then I struggle with that when we start calling our politicians all honorable and blah, 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 which I get the whole history or whatever it be. But even in my email, because after we chatted, I sent out a bunch of emails to other city councilors. I'm like, okay, I should probably do the right thing and give the opportunity to everyone. And there's only one person who I didn't have an actual email for, so I shot them a Facebook message because for some reason they don't want an email out there. Gerald Watson, the lawyer, only gives a phone number. I'm not going to pick up the phone. That's not how I communicate unless I'm trying to really have a conversation right away. So it was interesting to me see like who actually responded to my emails, just as like an A/B test of like who's open to having these conversations. And
I was the first one.
Yeah. Well, you were one of the front runners for sure. I would have to go back because being the loosey goosiness that is me, right? I've had a few conversations with people, but the usual suspects. Certain ones didn't reply. Other ones said, "Hey, thank you, I'm too busy." And other people were like, "Yeah, for sure. Let's figure out the schedule," right? So it was interesting to see who took me kind of seriously versus who like said, "I don't care if you're serious or not. I'll give you a shot because that's a conversation with one of my potential voters," right? And that's the way I view this, right? And I appreciate you taking your time because life's busy, right? And to take me seriously, look me in the eye, record a conversation, and then let me put it out there for the world is, I think it's where we are at this point, right? And I want to know if Ken Christensen's ever going to reply to my email. Like, whether he does or not, I don't know. Right? It's up to him. But we'll see if it happens.
Well, like you said, though, we're all individuals, and there's going to be a variance in how people respond and interact and reply. So, I mean, that's, I think, also one of the benefits, though, to having a wide variety of people running is that there is a diversity of communication styles, perspectives, backgrounds. So, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to have a conversation that is then posted out, and I hope people will contact me if they have questions or if they want to know more. I mean, as much as I would love to, I just simply don't have the time to sit down and have conversation with everyone.
Yes.
I try to engage as much as possible. So this is, for me, a really great way to try and do that. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, well, we're just around the 40-minute mark or so. Is there anything more you want to kind of chat about? It could be anything at all. It's really just an opportunity for you to humanize yourself beyond Sadie Hunter, that is the politician, right? Which everyone looks at politicians as politicians, right? And I've had some conversations with politicians. You're like, oh yeah, remind myself, they're just regular people. They're just regular people, right?
Well, and that's, back to your point you just made a couple of minutes ago. We are just all people. We're passionate. We're all, I think, everyone's running for maybe some similar reasons, but also different ones. And, I'm running because I'm passionate about Kamloops and our community. And I feel like I have a skill set that is unique that I can bring to the table. We talked a little bit about my lived experience before, but I also have a master's in environmental science.
Oh, wow.
And a bachelor of science in environmental biology and a bachelor of journalism. So I have a skill set where I can look at facts, I can make fact-based decisions based on my academic training and career, but balance it out with my lived experience, So decisions can't just be made just on fact all the time. You have to consider the social aspects and the social impacts of some of those decisions. So I think I can bring both of those together, and I don't know that that's something that everyone can do, but it's just who I am.
Yeah.
And it's just the way that my life has brought me to this point. So that is one of the reasons that I'm running, is because I truly feel like I have something unique to offer in moving us forward.
Yeah. I had no idea that you're a journalist or a trained journalist, and I have utmost respect for journalists, of course, right? And I'm hoping the city council, however it happens to be, kind of takes in some more interesting ways of engaging with people, right? Whether it be like through their live stream webcam thing through their portal. Why not just put it on Facebook? It's just one step away, but that's just me complaining. Well, Sadie, where can people find you online? What's your website?
So my website is sadiehunterkamloops.com. My email is sadiehunterkamloops@gmail.com. So those are probably two of the best ways to get a hold of me. Otherwise, I'm on Facebook. I have a Facebook page, Twitter, and Instagram. And I think that's all of the social media outlets that I covered. But
awesome.
I'm happy to chat with anyone.
Well, thank you once again for chatting with me. And for the listeners, please feel free to subscribe or share this with people. Don't hold it against me if I'm not as journalistic as traditional media, because I'm not. That's not the point of this. It's just having open conversations, dialogue, see what happens. And, as long as you vote, I'm happy.
October 20th.
October 20th. Or vote ahead of time if you know who you're going to vote for. Just vote. Let's get well above 30% voting, because, we have a lot to lose if you don't vote. So thank you once again for tuning in to Cameo Podcast, and have a wonderful day. Cheers.